And welcome back to the Ride of JMV. Kevin Bowen filling in today for John. And let's head to the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline with, I guess he's the only Colt quarterback currently under contract right now. He is Jacob Eason joining us today, courtesy of Panini. Jacob, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. What's the offseason been like so far now? I guess about a month into it.
Yeah, I mean, I took a couple weeks there in the beginning just to kind of reflect and take some personal time and hang out with some family and my girlfriend and lay low for a bit. But now we're getting back into the swing of things, kind of picking things up, making sure I'm staying in shape and get back out in the field and going through the route trees and all that good stuff. So, I still got a lot of room and time to improve and grow, and I'm looking forward to getting back in there, back out to California and back to work soon.
Will you train in Cali or will you be in Indy much?
I'll be, back and forth, obviously with our schedules coming up, but I'll be most of the time in California.
Chris Ballard talked at the end of the offseason about how he was really struck by kind of your exit meetings and felt like you learned a lot this season and really appreciated some of the answers that you gave to him. I guess what did you tell Chris in those exit meetings, and how would you summarize a year that might have been a red shirt, from a playing standpoint, but I'm sure not really mentally?
Yeah, I mean, I had great exit meetings with all my coaches and our GM Chris Ballard. It's basically we kind of just discussed what had happened this season. It was a unique year in terms of not having a preseason and not having OTAs and all that stuff. We had virtual OTAs. What should you call it? But I think the biggest thing for me was the visualization and seeing the the mental side of the game and how Philip and Jacoby and how these coaches coach and all those things. It was huge for me just to kind of go in and dissect that and learn and grow. Like every day, just being in the meetings with those guys and seeing how how they handled the everyday life of of being a professional quarterback was big for me. So. Take that all. And I wrote down a lot of things this season and being able to take what I learned this year and head into the off season and get ready for next year will be huge for me.
Take me inside those meeting rooms. Are you asking a bunch of questions? Are you just kind of a sponge soaking it all in? What's that like given?
Yeah, I wasn't a huge question asker this year, just because I am a rookie and it was more Philip's show because he was the starter. So I'd say, yeah, it was more of a sponge this year and a sponge with a pen pad and a notebook or whatever you call it. No, it was a great year in terms of my development from the mental side of the game, like I mentioned before. A lot of back and forth between OC, head coach, Philip and our QB coach. So, just being in those meetings and seeing the questions Phillips was asking, seeing what we're putting on tape and how Phillips is implementing that into the game plan, it was huge for me. So I think it was a tremendous year in terms of development and growth.
If you had to narrow it down to maybe one or two things that really struck you about Philip's prep, what would that be?
That's a tough question. There's so many good qualities in Philip that it's hard to dissect one or two. But I think, his consistency, not only in his preparation, but as a leader and a vocal guy in the locker room, and just his physical prowess. Obviously, he'd been in the league for 17 years, so guys knew who he was. But he was just a very consistent person, which was awesome to see. Every day he had the same attitude. His schedule was the same every single day. So just watching how he handled things and the wins and the losses. That's another important thing. It's a game about winning, but seeing how a guy like that handles a loss is another key thing. So it was a very tremendous year in terms of those things.
Jacob Eason joining us here on the Ride of the JMV. Thanks to Panini for helping us out with this interview. For those that don't know, Jacob, what are you doing today with Panini?
So I'm down here in Dallas with a handful of other rookies from this last year's class, signing some autographs, hanging out, talking ball with these guys and having some fun. It's good to get down here and connect with these guys and ask them how their seasons went. I haven't seen them since the draft and the combine and all that stuff. So it's been a good couple of days.
I have these stories. I remember riding the bus in elementary school and ripping some kid off for a Marvin Harrison rookie card. It still kind of keeps me up at night, which shows you probably how big of a loser I am. But did you collect cards back in the day?
I did. I wasn't humongous in collecting them, but I definitely had a couple binders full. My biggest guy was Peyton Manning, so I remember having 6 or 7 sheets full of his cards, which was awesome back in the day.
And obviously Peyton probably definitely going into the Hall of Fame this weekend as a first ballot guy. Transitioning back to that rookie year, I remember being at those Lucas Oil practices you had and really threw the ball really well. And I felt like maybe that was like your only real practice time because you ran the scout team, right? When Phillip got hurt a little bit.
Yeah, towards the tail end of the year. Yeah.
So I guess what was a normal week like for Jacob Eason, Monday through Saturday?
I mean, it was the same as everyone else, just showing up, because, especially this year, you never know what's going to happen. One guy could test positive that could lead to, 3 other guys sitting out. So it was a very unique year in that sense. My process was, I'm not the starter this year, but I'm going to prepare like I am and still, still actively participate in meetings, not asking a ton of questions, but mentally being locked in and loaded. So, from the preparation standpoint, I prepared like, I was going to go out there on Sundays, obviously I didn't, and then when it was Sundays, I had the call sheet and all that good stuff. And I was watching and trying to learn and see the dialogue that, what Phillip was doing and this and that. So I think, from the preparation standpoint and being in a room with those guys, it was huge.
I talked to Marcus Brady last week. He mentioned kind of footwork, maybe being the biggest physical aspect to it. Would you narrow that down to kind of the biggest physical thing you wanted to work on in your rookie year?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's always room for improvement in everything, whether it's the fundamentals and the mechanical side of the game or the mental side of the game, and I try to take, 1 or 2 things a day and work on those things. Yeah. Marcus is really good at coaching the fundamentals and physical side of the game. And we went out there and practiced 3-4 days a week, whatever, depending on the week and worked on those things. So going into the off season, I got a handful of things I've written down that I want to, start working on and we'll go from there. Individually,
what would you say is your biggest goal going into year 2?
I think my biggest goal is just to be as prepared as possible for whatever might happen. There's no telling, what goes on. And I think just from my perspective, I think just being as prepared as possible for whatever the situation may be. And then when the opportunity presents itself, then go take it. So, I'm excited to get back to Indy and obviously attack this off season.
You mentioned that list. What are maybe some of those things on the list that you're really focusing on?
Yeah, I don't want to get into too much detail, but, from the mechanical side of things, it's just, being more consistent, consistently throwing those accurate balls and making sure my feet are set underneath me. And, I think there's a handful of things that go along with the fundamental side of things that kind of all connect together. And so it'll be really honing in on the small details of being consistent, being accurate and all those good things from the footwork, from the ground up. And then obviously the mental side of the game, there's always room for improvement, whether it's protections, seam coverage, going through, our own progressions and all that stuff. So there's a lot of things that I'm looking forward to continuing to improve on this off season. And yeah.
We'll end with this. You got a favorite spot in Indy? I know obviously it was a kind of a crazy year, but
it was a favorite spot. Obviously St. Elmo's is a big one. I went there for a couple times this off season, but this season. It's hard. It was hard to get out and get around there just because I was trying to stay COVID safe, and there's a lot of responsibility on the line there. So hopefully next year things will be a little bit different as to where we can go out with and be around people. So I'll give you a better answer next year.
I think I speak for everyone in Colts Nation. They're excited to see you on the field, hopefully first and, maybe OTAs, training camp, but certainly the preseason, get some game action. So appreciate the time today, Jacob, and enjoy the offseason, man.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kevin.